Okay, we're back, and we're fortunate enough to be interviewing George Carlin on the show this evening. And Dr. Rob, is George Carlin here with us right now?
Yes, he is. He's very agitated, as he was when he was alive. I've been thinking about this interview since last night, and so I'm really looking forward to speaking to him and having him give us a message.
Okay, well, my first question for George, which now I'm kind of already getting my answer, but let's see what he says, is have you adjusted to being on the other side, and would you say you're at peace?
I would say that I definitely feel peaceful when I touch in with him, but he feels like he is on one of his HBO specials, and so it should be a very interesting interview. He's made me laugh several times in just the last few seconds, just in his actions and waving at me and different things, pacing back and forth behind you on that wall. Even though we have a lot of things in the studio, he's definitely ready to perform, that's for sure.
Excellent. Yeah, I've always been a fan of a lot of his work. I mean, even though a lot of times it had kind of a negative or satirical twist to it, you know, he really had some funny material, and I mean, he did so much work. It's just amazing what comes up even on the web still. So he's going to have probably a long-term legacy, I'd say. Now, George, what was the cause of your death, and was there any foul play?
From what I understand from him and from what I'm feeling from him, in his last few moments of life, this was more of a natural cause death. I really feel like everything just shut down at once. I felt like my heart kind of exploded inside of my chest, and I felt like there was a lot of connections to his health, breathing issues. There was all kinds of other things that had happened, prior to his passing. But yeah, this was definitely natural causes.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. I mean, I kind of gathered that because he was in his 70s. So, and I think some of his previous material, he'd kind of almost made reference that I don't think he knew he was going. He knew he wasn't going to be around a whole lot longer. So, okay, that's interesting. Now, back earlier in his life, what influenced him to get into the entertainment business?
He said he was always, involved with working with people. That was always his forte, and for him, he always enjoyed making people laugh. And he said that he would just come up with some crazy things to tell people, and just to see if they would believe him. And for him personally, that was just a personal enjoyment. And really, the performing part just came naturally to him. He said this was just something that he was born with, something that he was, just always interested in.
So I guess basically would you say that he wanted to be a star even from early age, pretty much?
He didn't necessarily see himself as a star. He saw himself as just someone who was just saying it how it was. And, for him personally, a lot of his material was, picking on subjects that people would be controversial, that people would pay attention to. He says that he used to make comments, on stage that people would just be so shocked about, and he would just laugh inside because it was really just manipulating the audience. Just to see how far he could take things and see how far he could push people's buttons, and it just that was part of the enjoyment of his career. Yeah,
I remember first time I ever heard him, I think, was the 7 words you can't say on television. I was pretty young. I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, he definitely did have a lot of shock value to his entertainment, that's for sure. Now, later on, when he did cross over, was there anyone there to greet him, or anybody notable that the rest of us sort of recognized?
He says that, with him personally, George Burns was always someone that he looked up to, someone that he always admired. He said that George, got a late start in his career just like he did. And, the two of them, were not necessarily close, but someone that he admired. And he said that, when he first crossed over to the other side, George was there to greet him, and he kind of thought he was in that Oh God movie. It was like a big joke, with George there. And, there were several others, he said, that were, there to greet him. But really, when he did cross over to the other side, it was kind of a shock. Let's just put it that way for him personally. He had made a lot of comments over the years, and for him to actually arrive, he was, wow. That's basically what he said.
Okay, yeah, he's already kind of starting to skip ahead on some of the upcoming questions. We'll get into some more of that later. Also, I know you mentioned George Burns, which was like one of the next few questions of how George was doing, but also I was curious, about Milton Berle.
He said that Uncle Milty was someone that he was very close to in this life. He was like a father to him. Took him under his wing, kind of just gave him a lot of encouragement over the years. But with Milton, he said that they had this love-hate relationship. There was a lot of jealousy on Milton's part over the years. I thought that he'd given him more of not enough credit for some of the things he had done for him, and so when he crossed over to the other side, it was not one of the first ones. He said he eventually caught up with them, but I think that was surprising even to him that he wasn't there to greet him.
Yeah, I know. I wondered how that went over when Milton Berle was there at George's Star dedication, for the Hollywood Star. So that was part of why I was curious about how that went.
He said that it was a pleasure for him to have somebody of such fortitude and popularity to be there to present him. And as he said earlier to me, he said that he never really quite got the grasp of him being a star, but he said that he didn't miss an opportunity of driving by his star when he was in Hollywood, just to have that acknowledgement was more than enough for him.
I'm sure he's probably been back to it several times even since then, I imagine.
Well, a little side note, aside from this interview with him, our co-host, Bill O'Brien, and I were in Hollywood, and we actually walked across to his star and all the other stars as well. I think we spent like 2 or 3 days trying to contact the different stars who had crossed over, and he was one of the ones that I definitely felt his presence when I crossed over that particular star.
I bet that whole stretch is probably pretty busy with all the stars that are there. Now, also, out of curiosity, had he, had previous lives, or how many? Did it kind of come back to him when he crossed back over? Almost like a forgotten memory.
He said that he had a lot of lives and religious orders. He said he was a priest on numerous lifetimes, and I think he says that's one of the reasons why he was so anti-religion, in this life. A lot of what he says to me is really, based on, a lot of time spent alone in monasteries and praying, and he said he had at least 10 lifetimes as a priest.
Wow. Well, I always thought it was ironic, too. I know, like on the Dogma movie, he played a cardinal, so which was kind of a contrast to a lot of his on-stage persona as far as his viewpoints on such things.
He says that that movie was really fun for him because he got to really make fun of the church. He said that whole movie was just a satirical way of looking at the Catholic Church and their indulgences and some of the other things. And he said that for him personally was just one of the greatest roles he ever had in his life. Just having that bit role in that movie, he said that was just too funny for him. He said he died laughing at the end of his life, still thinking about Dogma and playing the cardinal. But he said actually in a previous lifetime he'd actually been a cardinal and had almost been pope, and so he said that was just kind of reliving the past for him.
Wow, that is really interesting, especially, like I said, considering the persona he had in this lifetime as far as those viewpoints. Now, also, let's see, is there any intimacy or sex on the other side, or what does he do over there for entertainment, or let us know.
Says that there is intimacy on the other side, but it's not like a physical sex. It's more of an emotional, spiritual, combination of souls. He said that it feels real great and all that, but it's not the same as when you're alive. He said that he doesn't really miss it, the live part, but he said that the spiritual part is much more satisfying.
Okay, that's really cool then. Besides, just this other intimacy, what kind of other activities does he do for fun, or how does he occupy his, I know the time-space is different over there, but what does he usually find himself doing?
He says that for him personally, he is on a lot of councils. He says that, he's really there to kind of help out God, if you want to call it that. He says he's just, really part of the structuring of what's coming next for our world. He said that he was really surprised that he was actually called upon to take on some of these responsibilities, due to his current lifetime. But he said that, because of all of his spiritual lifetimes prior to this one, he kind of had saved up a lot of karma points and was able to kind of skip ahead a little bit.
Now, is there anything you do miss about being among the living, or is it you're a lot happier on the other side?
He says he misses the live action with the people. He says that those on the other side don't have the sense of humor that he did when he was alive. He said that it's not so serious over on the other side. He said that it's just there's a lot of other things to do besides the laugh. And he says he holds a comedy hour at least a couple times a week in our Earth time. Everyone gets together and they all just perform for each other, and it's a great time. He said he's not really missing anything in particular here on the Earth, just that interaction with live people.
So I guess, is that something he and maybe Sam Kinison and a few of the others have come up with doing?
Yeah, he said that, even from the beginning of our history, he said that even those people, William Shakespeare, puts on plays, and so there's a lot of different activities that they're involved with. He said that they have this huge amphitheater, if you want to call it that. He says he's showing me a picture of it, and it's like the largest building I think that has ever been created, and they all get together and they sit and they watch each other on the big screen TVs that they have in heaven. And I was kind of surprised to see the description. I think it's just more for my sake than actually what it's like. But he said that it's kind of like that. It's like going to a huge rock concert every day.
Oh yeah, I would have figured they would have had like holodecks or something, more futuristic there.
Like I said, I think it's more for my benefit.
Sure.
Giving me an idea.
So does he feel like he did, get to complete everything he wanted to do while he was in this lifetime?
He said that a lot of what his work was just to make people laugh, and he said a lot of the material that he was talking about and a lot of the things that he was trying to bring out was just to get people to think, and that was really what it was all about. He wanted to get people to think. He loved writing, he said. He said that's one of the things that he wish he would have done more of. He wrote a lot of material for himself, but he wishes that he could have gotten a lot more out there.
What was his favorite project that he worked on? If he, looking back, what would he say?
He said really the HBO specials were very, very special to him. The fact that he was able to do so many of them, he really felt that was really a big thing for him. Dogma was his definite favorite project. He says he's laughing hysterically at me because he knows that that's my favorite movie as well. We were talking about that yesterday prior to coming together for this interview, and I just appreciate the satirical look at religion as well, and I think that's why I'm so close to him now. During this interview, it's going to be a few days. I think he'll be hanging out with me, giving me some insights, and so we'll have to share that with you off air.
Yeah, well, we are getting ready to do some recycled flooring projects in the studio here, so maybe he can help out on that, huh?
No way.
Well, also when he looks back, what would he say is the probably the happiest period during his life? Was it earlier, or later, or was there just a period that he looks back on and he really felt some tranquility, or that everything was going the way he wanted it to?
He said that he never really had any regrets with life. He said there really wasn't a specific time frame that he was happier in. He said he always tried to maintain happiness in the little things. He said that even though he had, money, and even though he had fame, he was just a simple guy. He'd get up, he'd drink his coffee, put on his pants just like the rest of us, he said. And that was something that was really important for him, to just remain himself. He said a lot of his friends were, out there, in the early days of the drugs and some of the other things. And he said for him, he did that, but that was just a phase. He kind of took life more serious. He realized that, those people were really messing up, and he used the F word when he said that, and I was like, wow, okay.
What'd you use the F word?
Yeah, I'm shocked too. And I'm trying to censor this for XM radio, but honestly, this could be a real routine for him. He said he had never really come to a psychic before, and to give an interview, and so this is kind of one of his I felt special that he was able to grant us what he calls the exclusive. And so it's satisfying to me to do this work sometimes, and speaking to the dead isn't always the greatest experience in my life personally, but this is definitely one of those interviews I'm definitely going to remember.
Well, that's great. It sounds like he, definitely just said he was at peace and everything, but was there anything, he wished maybe he had done differently while he was here?
No regrets, he says. No regrets. For him, life was, every moment was something new and different, and he always tried to live adventurous, he said. He said his father was very conservative, and he kind of just wanted to go opposite of everything that he was taught, and so even, when he crossed over, his father was there to greet him, and he said he was very proud of him, and that was something that was very special to George. When he was alive, he never heard that, and he said to me, he never really had that in this life. No one ever really told him how proud they were of him. And later in life, when he was famous, he expected it. He expected people to say that to him. So he never really appreciated it. But when his father told him that when he crossed over, that was heaven to him.
Well, that's good to hear that they had patched things up. I know that there was some controversy throughout his life. When he was growing up, I think he was probably closer to his mother, most likely.
He said his mom was there as well, but what really meant a lot to him was that his father was there to say, hey, I'm sorry, and that to George was enough to make him at peace. It's when we cross over, sometimes we have a lot on our souls, from the abuse and things that he had suffered from. And he said that was just kind of his way of just making peace. And he said that was one of the most peaceful moments of the crossing over experience.
Well, that's good that he got some closure on that, so that's nice to hear. Also, I know he was, friends with Joe Pesci, so has Joe Pesci received probably several visits from George since then?
He said he hangs out with him a lot, and Joe's never really forgotten him, he says. He says that their relationship was a strange one. They were like soul brothers. They had that connection from the moment they met. And he said that Joe had been involved in things that he wasn't really necessarily agreeing with at the end of his life, and they had kind of lost that connection. But now that he's on the other side, he's definitely looking after Joe and his family. He said that his family was very close to him at one time, and he said they were just like brothers. And for him, now that he's on the other side, he's definitely there to look after him. He says that Joe is kind of lost right now. He said he really just doesn't know what to do with himself. He spends a lot of time golfing. He spends a lot of time just outdoors. And he said that Joe's career isn't necessarily over, but Joe thinks so. And so I'm not really sure what that means exactly, but he says that he knows that Joe has a lot of time left, and he hopes that he can inspire him to get back to work.
Well, hopefully so. Joe's done a lot of great work. I know my favorite was, of course, My Cousin Vinny. I can't tell you how many times I've watched that, and it's always funny. So hopefully we will see more from him. Out of all the people he worked with, because he had, quite an amount of people over the years he worked with, and also, you mentioned his 14 HBO specials, which is pretty outstanding. Who was probably his favorite, person to work with, would he say?
Himself. He wanted to, he said, I'm laughing as well. No, he said that really for him, working with himself was much more satisfying. Being the writer, the producer, the director, all the hats that he wore, just being himself, and just trying to make people laugh. That was the highlight of his career.
Yeah, actually, that was kind of a no-brainer. I should have expected an answer like that out of George. Now, he had also, over the years, pretty much, reinvented his, stage persona probably at least 3 times, over the different decades. And I know from the 90s on, he got into more of a negative, satirical type of, almost like the grouchy old man type of routine. It was funny. And he made reference to things, even I know a few years back, even before he crossed over, he had always referred more than once to, basically this country or this whole lifestyle system we have is pretty much circling the drain. From the other side, does he still see things that way, or what does it look like to him now?
He says that was just the actor in him. He said he really didn't feel that way. He said that, it was just something to talk about, something to get people to think. He said that when he would make those comments, people would be like, really? we're on the way out, and this is really society really collapsing. And he really didn't believe it necessarily in the way that he presented it, but he did have a lot of fears for the future. Now that he's on the other side, no, he doesn't see it the same way. He says that he's much more enlightened, I think, in a lot of ways. He says than he was when he was alive.
Okay, so from that point of view, then, is there maybe some advice or words you might have for us that are still amongst the living that you'd like to get across?
He says, don't take things too serious. He said that was the big reason for his career, was that everybody was so serious all the time, and he wanted, to use serious subjects to really just get people to say, hey, is this really going to the way things are? And he was very intellectual when he was alive. He said he was very deep in thought all the time, and always trying to come up with new things to get people to think about. He said that, a lot of the reason why he was doing what he was doing is because people would just become so passive. He said with modern technologies and with everything that was happening, people weren't thinking for themselves anymore. They were just drones, he said, and they're just following things through. And he shows me Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and that's kind of where he was talking to me about the drones, and at that moment everybody was in gray, and so I thought that was kind of funny, the way he was presenting things in that movie. He said that a lot of what he was perceiving the future to be like was definitely based on that movie. He said for him personally, he just wanted people to not just to believe what people said, but to actually figure it out for themselves.
Okay, so he's probably at home here in the off-grid studio then, is
Yeah, well, I won't go there with him. He said, I'm not going to go there. For himself personally, the respect, I think, for some of the things that we're trying to accomplish. He said that, our show kind of gives those people that normally wouldn't have a voice. And he said that's one of the things that he appreciates, and that's one of the reasons why he came today. Because of the things that we're trying to do here at the Dr. Rob Show are kind of things that he would do when he was alive. And having that ability to give a voice to no one who else has a voice. And he said he would always try to look out for the younger comics. He always try to look out for the younger people to try to give them an opportunity to have, a say. And that's really what it was all about for him.
Okay, I think also when we interviewed John Candy, he said something similar. So did they see much of each other on the other side?
He says he knows John. He says that, they're not hanging out together on a regular basis, but yeah, they all know each other. And for him, I think a lot of the themes of the people of that era, he says, were coming back with the same messages. He said that a lot of the stars from the 60s, 70s, 80s were all about, bringing about change, getting people to think about life. He says that the stars now aren't giving that same message. He said that it's a different era, but it's a different message that they're supposed to give because they're different people. He said that, at the end of his life, he kind of felt like he was out of touch a little bit because the kids, were not anybody that he could understand. He said some of the stuff that they were doing in the music and everything was just totally foreign to him completely. And I totally agree. I kind of empathize with him on that one. I'm only 40, but I'm still feeling a little out of touch myself now.
Yeah, I kind of even noticed that, in some of his later material that he was almost, he made reference that, that he basically really had no stake in the future anymore. And this was a few years before he died, so I think some of that did come across in the material, that his disconnection.
He said he was just fed up. He said he was tired of the same crap every day, and the politics and the politicians and a lot of the things that we're going through today. He said they were going through back in the 50s and 60s when he was, younger. And he said that, for him, it was just a time of just whatever. At one point he was just whatever, and that's kind of what he was trying to get across to us, as his viewing audience. It was that I don't have that attitude, but at the same time, you can only do so much, to change society, to change the world. And he said for him, changing it one day at a time was important. And he said that was really what it was all about.
Speaking of some of just the things he had to put up with, I saw reference to where I guess in the 60s he had even lost one of his nightclub type of gigs, and for back then it was just for saying basically the S word. And then he had a funny remark he made on that. So yeah, it sounds like he probably saw changes to the decades, but some of it I imagine he got to see at least it loosen up a little bit, which I think is probably more how he wanted things to be, wasn't it?
It was. He called them hypocrites. That's the word he used, hypocrites. He said they were doing everything on behind closed doors, but, when it came to being open in public, for him personally, that was the part that he was trying to get people to see. He said that a lot of what was going on behind the scenes in Hollywood, and, you mentioned that particular club, he said that the club owners were on cocaine. And he said that, for him personally, to censor him, amongst all the other things they could think about or worry about, he said that, they had a lot more to worry about in their personal life, but, that's another story.
Okay, so yeah, this has been really a fascinating interview. Now, another thing that, he had more openly said before is, he had made reference he became an atheist. And he did this at what he called the age of reason, which he said was the age of 2.5. Now, has that view changed any?
He's kind of laughing about it. He said that really for him personally, it was more along the lines of anti-religion in this life for him was more of a joke than anything else. He was a very spiritual man. He said that, a lot of what people were reviewing as spirituality really wasn't spirituality, going back to that hypocritical, viewpoint on life. He said that for him, the church was never there for him. They never looked after him. They were his family. And he said that, his mom had a lot of issues because of the father. And, it was kind of like, for him, religion really wasn't important. It was just a way to restrict you, to get you to follow the man, is what he said. And so, for him personally, he had a belief in God and a belief in the spiritual life, but, he really kind of just turned that off, at one point just because it was just too painful.
So actually, probably, the atheist term was a little bit of a mislabeling then. It was more against, I guess, an organized or structured religion, so to speak, which kind of makes sense based on what he said. But I'm sure still, how did he feel when he did see God again?
Man, she's hot. That's what he said to me. And of course, I'm sure that has to do with the movie Dogma and Alanis Morissette. Yeah. We were speaking about that yesterday prior to the interview today. You and I were, and I think for him, the view of God, he says, is much more expansive than what people give God credit for, if you want to call him God. He says it's really all about everyone and everything, and really that's something that we should know. He said, the reference to a male entity standing up there judging us, he said it's just not the way it works. He said that's something that man's created, not what God created.
So there's not the bearded man with the checklist of how many points you got for good and bad. It's not. I always thought it'd be kind of a waste of his time to stand over a cloud and try to keep up with what everybody's doing. So yeah, it makes sense.
He says that, God has a lot of help. There's a lot of councils, that meet together every day in our earth time. And they're always meeting about different individuals and different problems and different things. And he said, really, that's how things get done. He said that it's not just one, it's everyone as a collective working together to try to help those that are still alive and to try to progress. He said it's much more complicated than what people know about, and it's a progression of things. He talked about karma points, he said, and it's about the good that we do here is what we take with us. So if we're in hell here, we're in hell on the other side, and for him personally, that was kind of the concept he always thought about, and when he got there, he wasn't really surprised by the whole thing. He goes back to the George Burns things. He said that he felt like God had a sense of humor when he got there, and George Burns was there to greet him. He said, this is what God looks like, and and for him personally, that was the best part of it. He said he just laughed for hours. He said, and he just really just enjoyed the whole experience. He was always worried. It was a side of him. He said he was always worried about whether God was going to be mad at him or not when he got there, and to have that experience to just kind of made him realize that God has a sense of humor too.
Well, also out of that one, he pretty much answered the last question before I even asked it. So it's been a very interesting interview, and like I said, he's more than welcome to hang around while we put some of this flooring in later and revamp the studio a little bit.
Well, as I was telling you, sometimes the dead will hang out for a few days, and had an experience recently with Gloria Stefan's father had stayed with me for a couple of weeks, and so I don't mind them coming in and popping in and appearing. I mean, that's a normal, natural thing for me. But the energy levels are always at risk, and so I try to protect myself. I'm sure George will be here for a while, and I encourage that for sure. Well, I just want to thank George for giving us this exclusive interview, as he called it earlier in this hour, with us this evening, and we invite him to come back anytime to give us some more insight from the other side, for sure.
Yeah, it's been very interesting. I was always a big fan of his. Also, just out of curiosity, is there probably any undiscovered material or anything else or work that we can expect to see, surfacing? It's been a couple years since his passing, and actually we're right about on the anniversary of it, I think June 22nd. So are we looking for maybe some more material to come out that maybe hadn't been discovered before?
He said that really the material that he did a lot for younger comics. He did a lot of work for others. He said that a lot of the things that we're seeing today are some of the things that he had worked on. But getting credit for it is not important to him at this point. It's just the inspiration. I know that he was making reference to Johnny Carson, in the golfing a few seconds ago. I just saw the two of them playing golf together. And, Johnny was the same way. He said he really was about helping others. He said he would give material and things like that to other people, and he said that really that's what George was about too.
Other than that, that pretty much wraps up all the questions I have. Is there anything else he would like to add?
Not really. He says that's pretty much it. He said that for him, this was a great experience, great time, and he thanks us both for having him here today. So thank you, George.